Duck, and I am coming to you with this podcast about yarn and knitting and the fiber arts from a beautiful Albuquerque in New Mexico in the USA. I'm glad you are joining me today to hear a little bit about my knitting projects, past that are the finished ones and also the ones that I'm working on right now. And also I have a special message today. Hallo, ihr lieben deutschsprachigen Zuschauer. Ich freue mich, dass ihr heute auch wieder dabei seid, auch wenn es vielleicht ein bisschen schwieriger ist für euch durch die englische Sprache. Wenn ihr irgendetwas nicht versteht, seid so gut und schreibt mir das in den Kommentar oder schickt mir eine Nachricht auf Ravelry. Ich beantworte total gerne eure Fragen und freue mich, dass ihr auch wieder dabei seid. So, if you haven't figured it out, now you know for sure. I am German, but my husband's American, and I've been in the United States for almost 20 years, and very happy that the love of my life brought me here, especially brought me here to New Mexico, where I just love it so much and where we are very happy. So, but you want to hear about knitting, and so let me start with what I have been working on in the past 2 weeks since I talked to you last. And you may remember that I was talking about the indie mashup shawl. Here's the pattern. And this is by Boho Chic Fiber Company, and I have since finished the shawl, and this is what it looks like. I will put it on. It is huge, and this is going to be the way I wear it as soon as it's cooler, because it's so quite hot here in New Mexico. So I wear it with the long tip in the back, and then if I need to, I'm gonna flip the pointy ends to the back like this. I think very random with the way I wear my shawls. So I love this thing so much. I have made it with 4.5 millimeter needles with Ziawoolz, and the yarn I have used is an off-white natural yarn that I got as a sample for possibly to add to my shop for dyeing. And so sorry it's not yet available, and I'm not sure if I'm gonna add it, but I loved working with it. It felt very much like a woolen spun, hand spun. The other two yarns were two colorways. One was by Colorbug Yarns, Superwash BFL, the orange pink one, and then the other one was from a fiber friend who lives also in New Mexico. And I have increased the size of the shawl because I think my gauge was a little bit off and smaller, but I wanted it big, and also I didn't want to have leftovers, so I added a few sections. I think I added 2 stripes here, and this whole section here, and also quite a bit of that white. I think in the end I got to about 550 stitches, maybe even more. I did not count. the way the shawl is finished is with an I-cord bind off, which always makes such a nice and finished looking end to any kind of knitted object. And I knitted everything kind of with all my yarns to use them up. And so I had, which I had shown you, just a tiny ball, and of the yarn of the color that was meant to be used for the bind off, and I already knew that was probably not going to do it. And then I found a little sample swatch that I had made of that same yarn for possibly socks. But I mean, as you can see, these will not be socks, but that yarn was all used up in the bind off. So here's the one colorway, and when I realized I'm really not gonna have enough, I put that other colorway, as much as I had of it, in between, that's in this area, and then I finished off with actually something totally, no, it was the same. It was another tiny ball of yarn that I found of that colorway. And this is what I have left. None of the pinkish orange and, oops, this doesn't count. This and this and this. Total winner at Yarn Chicken. Woo. So that was my shawl, and already while I was working on it, I was thinking, what am I gonna make next? I like the feel of the shawl. I like this a little bit heavier base. I love knitting with my hand spun, which I hadn't done in a long time. And like I told you, I had started spinning again. So I started with a yarn that I had purchased at Albuquerque Fiber Arts Fiesta this May. And actually I had bought these two colorways from a company that I really admire very much. I love their dye work, and I love the specialty fiber that they carry. So I spun up their Silk Yak. It's a 50-50 blend, and a 50-50 blend of silk merino that I had already tried out 2 years before, when I had first seen them and purchased fibers from them. And the company is called Redfish Dye Works. And these are my yarns. My plan was originally to ply these together. So make a 2-ply yarn, 1 ply this dark blue and the other ply this, and that's why I picked colors that would kind of go together. But I changed my mind and I thought I would rather keep them separate, and I'm glad I did. Because I think for knitting, it's just going to give me more options for 2-colored shawls. And I ended up thinking, then I went on Ravelry, as we all do, and I looked at some patterns, and I had found this pattern called Happy End. It is a designer who's located in Germany, and I apologize, her name is not on the pattern, so I cannot tell you, but I know she publishes everything in English and in, oh, there it is. Ebner, E-B-N-E-R, Moni. So that's probably too small for you to see. Ebner, Moni. So maybe Moni from Monica, I don't know. So when you look at all her designs, I find that you get this great feel of her picking up the country vibe of where she lives. These are very much what is called Trachten, a modern version of Trachten shawls. I like that. Check her out. So again, this one is called Happy End. Happy End. That's the one I thought about making. So I spun the yarn thinking, oh, that's going to be the shawl, and I will use as the main color this, and then add on the 50-50 silk merino, and then add on a third color, which I then spun, which was one of my own dyed fibers. It's a 70-30 BFL silk. It's something that I had gotten as a base to add possibly to the shop, and I wanted to try and see how it is dyed up and how it spins up, and see if I like it. So my test dye turned out fairly white, and this was a very interesting experience for me because I don't mind white at all in rovings and tops. And when but I wasn't sure what to expect of this spun up as a yarn. I thought it's probably going to be too light versus these other two dark colors, but in the end, the way it turns out is very much just like a paler version of these two colors. So I think in my book these go very well together. So I can't wait to start working with these, and this one is going to be the first one that I'm going to be balling up. I have to tell you about the Yak Silk Blend 50-50, I think I mentioned that, is that I did not particularly enjoy working with this because what I thought is that the fiber has these shorter bits, which are probably from the yak, and then in combination with the long fibers of the long staple length of the silk, it made it a little bit harder to spin. But the yarn itself, it was a very pleasant surprise. It has a little halo, and it's insanely soft. So really something that I can't wait to knit with, and it was worth all the trouble with the spinning. So I have a cat that's meowing in front of the door, so I will be right back. So, change of location today, by the way. I haven't even said anything about that, but I thought I'd try another spot just to mix things up a little bit and have it possibly a little more visually interesting or not so distracting also in the background. So this is an area in our bedroom where I thought, oh, this looks kind of nice. It's kind of very New Mexican also, so I hope you like it too, and I hope the light is okay. I have a door to the backyard right next to me, so that should give us plenty of light, hopefully. So, but back to my plans and back to the shawl. So I wanted to make the happy end. I spun up the yarn with the intention of making the shawl, not really thinking about the fact that the shawl, the happy end, requires 4 colors. I thought, oh, I can figure out something. But then I thought, why this when I enjoyed the pattern so much that I just knitted? And I have done that before. I have made things several times when I liked a pattern, and even in a row. So the plan is to make another indie mashup shawl, and can't wait to get started on that. So that was my shawl. What's next? Life, yeah, well, you know how it goes. Things happen and things influence your knitting. I bet you know that. And so one of the things that were kind of super important in my life this year was that our son graduated from high school in May, and he just moved out 2 weeks ago, since after the last podcast. So in April, as I mentioned in another episode, I had a lovely guest, Debbie of the Periscoping Sisters, who visited with us here in Albuquerque, and it turned out her son also graduated from high school in May, and so this is a big milestone for every family, and so I decided I have to come up with a colorway to celebrate those young men that are, just starting their own life. And I came up with a colorway which I named very suitably, I find, Boys to Men. And you may have seen Debbie's socks because she finished hers already. I only just now finished mine. I picked them up after Lewis moved out into the dorms. And I thought, oh, Mama gotta make socks for her boy, even when he's not home anymore. And here they are. They are on my sock blockers, so that's not... We have very similar feet. His legs are slimmer, but these are kind of loose for him, and of course they are his matching size. I made the cuff in a one-of-a-kind colorway just to be able to have a longer leg. And the way I knitted these was I did all kinds of firsts for me. So I am a very boring vanilla sock knitter, top down with 5 DPNs, and that's the way my grandmother taught me, and heel flap, of course, also. And I must say that, in regards to heel flap, I do need a heel flap, and so does my whole family. We have a high instep, and so we need the extra space that the extra fabric that the gusset gives you. So, but these socks, after Debbie encouraged me to give it a try, I had a friend who is here local to me actually refresh what Debbie had shown me, and she taught me how to do the toe up, the cast on. I think it's called the Turkish cast on for the toe up technique. I did toe up. I did 2 at a time, and I did magic loop, all 3 things for the very first time. After knitting socks, like the other way, for all my life, and I don't even know how many pairs of socks I've made. My husband still has a pair of socks that I made for him in that way, in that manner, top down, heel flap, whatnot, DPNs. I made those for him roughly 35 years ago. That's pretty cool, right? He never wears them. They're just a treasure for him. It's kind of funny. So, so that's how long I have been knitting my socks the other way, and this, like, all these firsts now for these socks for Lewis. So that's kind of funny. So here is the yarn in a skein. And this is 100 grams, 274 yards, and It is a 100% superwash merino. I didn't really pay attention to that at the time when I purchased the base. The base is an 8-ply cabled yarn, which I really, really adore because the construction is just so amazing. Probably, I don't even know if that shows on the camera, but it makes a really beautiful yarn. But I don't know how it's gonna wear with that, the lack of nylon. So I'm curious to see how it's gonna be like. But he likes his socks a little bit heavier because he wears them around the house. He never wears them in his shoes out. So they're his cozy slipper replacing socks. So, and just size wise, because you never know with the heavier weight and less yardage, this is probably a men's size 10 sock, and I'd even be fine with them being short like that, but I did use up all the yarn that I had. I feel like I wanted to say something else. Oh yes, I wanted to show you my label. And again, it is Boys to Men, and the base is called Chama. And this little stinker in the background is our second cat, Munchkin. I think you saw Ike before, the black and white one. So of course, out of equality reasons, I had to come up with a colorway for those girls of ours who grow up, and I do have a 16-year-old also, almost 16-year-old. So I came up with this colorway, which is called Big Girls Don't Cry. I have not worked with this colorway yet, but I have set one aside for my girl. I don't know if I'm gonna make them before she graduates or if I'm gonna wait until then for hers as well. But all of these yarns will be in my shop. I got it out of vacation mode, so if you want to take a peek, that's all that I'm adding currently. And because I have a pretty big wholesale order that I am working on right now, plus, which I haven't mentioned, I am currently moving my dye studio into the garage, which is fun, but also always comes with a few challenges, like fuses that pop and electricity not working out, and then shelves that you build but you're missing parts and you need to get more stuff. So all of this is happening while I do have to work on that wholesale order. So my yarns, which are very local with that name, Zia being the symbol that is on the New Mexican flag. So I'm selling my yarns. I have a shop, as you know, an online shop, and I have a website, www.Ziawoolz, Z in the beginning and a Z at the end. But there's a lot of my yarn in the yarn stores in Albuquerque and in Taos in northern New Mexico, and most likely soon as well in Santa Fe at Coffee and Yarn, which I'm very excited about. So, yep, that about Ziawoolz. So I have mentioned that my daughter has her birthday coming up, so she's almost 16. So what do you do? And what do you also do when you have just finished a pair of socks? You cast on a new pair of socks, especially when you have a good reason because your daughter has a birthday. Sadly, I will not finish these socks, but probably I'm going to get one done for sure, but not both. And I am also using a yarn which was a test dye of a sport weight yarn, which I never added to the shop. So, but it's so nice. And I'm pretty sure she's gonna love the yarn. So it was kind of a funny experiment. I think it originally was a skein of yarn where I thought, man, I'm never going to use this. It's kind of boring. It was this reds and whatnot. I can't really remember. I never documented it. But then I decided to over dye it in this very dark purple. And I had redone the ties of the yarn, and then when I got it out of the dye bath, it had undyed areas where the skein was tied, and but undyed meaning small areas in the spots. I mean, in those spots where it would show the previous color, which was a red and a pinkish colors. So here's the ball of yarn, or even just a little bit of an apricot, off-white. And I really enjoy working with it. And so maybe I have to play with this technique a little bit more when I'm all set up in the garage. So this is where I am. As you see, I'm back to top down, heel flap, but here's the one that I love and that I am repeating, the magic loop. You're all not gonna believe it that it took me so long to start knitting magic loop. I think I'm the last person on the planet who's doing their socks in magic loop. Okay, so this is that. Those were, oh no, I'm lying. Well, I need to show you something. I have brought my basket of doom. Actually, I'm not calling it that really. It's just kind of a very funny basket, because you will see now, or you can see now, how ridiculous I am with all my works in progress. Oh man, this thing is heavy. So this sits in our living room, and it has pretty much all my works in progress in it. Yes, I have a lot. And a lot of times I even forget what I have, which one of them that I forgot that I have is actually that's really a funny one, because remember how I told you in the last episode that I showed you the shawl, the zigzag pattern shawl with the German Lana Grossa yarn, and I had already made two of that one in purple, shades of purple for my mom, and one in blues and greens for myself. And that's the one that I showed you. Mom has hers, of course, in Germany. But I forgot to mention, because I didn't even think of it, that I had started a third one, because right? So here it is, and I only started it because I just could not wait to see how these colors play out. So I have all my 3 yarns here, so I can show you those, but the ball bands long lost because I think it's been a year that I started this. But it's Lana Grossa Lace Merino, Lana Grossa Lace Mohair, and this one, gosh, I can't remember what it is, but I believe it's a yarn that is discontinued, but therefore nicely marked down currently. So if you want to hunt that down, you might be lucky. Oh, you know what? I am so silly. Lace Luxe, that's what it's called. I have a copy of my pattern here. Nothing that helps you black and white picture. So this one, Lace Luxe, and all 3 yarns are by the company Lana Grossa, Lanagrossa. Sorry, the cats are fighting. They're distracting me. So this shawl is living in this lovely sheep bag that I made a while ago. German sheep fabric. Don't even try to hunt that down in America. And I've had it, I probably got it 3 or 4 years ago. It was this awesome gift by my friend Doris. And this is some vintage fabric. Can't remember where I found that. Maybe at a thrift store. I tied the yarn on here as a zipper pull, so I kind of remember what it is. What's in the bag, I meant to say. So, yes, and oh yes, here's another funny story for you. So, as I was finishing the shawl, I had 2 skeins of this white, and when I started, I had only washed one of them. So later on, I decided to knit up the second white skein, and I had to wash that as well. So as that one was drying, what do? You cast on a new project, right? So what I did is I cast on something that I had planned to make for a long time. Probably even much longer before I actually purchased the yarn. And that is the Hitofude cardigan. And in case you don't know it, here is a picture, and I'm sure you've seen it. And the designer's name is Hiroko Fukatsu. So when I went, I was in Reno last year and went to Jimmy Bean's, of course. How can you not? And so I went there thinking I will buy yarn to make this for this cardigan, just because then it's kind of, it pulls it all together. You travel, you remember the nice trip, and you bring home the yarn, and then in the end you have this garment or shawl or whatever it is that you make from that yarn. All good memories, hopefully, which this one for sure was all good memories. So what I picked was Lorna's Laces yarn. and it is the colorway Yorkshire Skies, and the yarn is called Soulmate, S-O-L-E mate. 55% superwash merino, 50 nylon, 30 viscose, 100 gram skeins, and I got 3 skeins, which apparently should be enough. Pretty. So I have to say that I was thinking about, even though I had bought this for this cardigan, that I was thinking maybe I should knit with my own yarn just because I have to have samples, but that's no fun, right? I mean, all of you dyers, you knit with other yarns too, because you cannot always only use your own, even if you love it. And actually I do have a colorway that is not a colorway and a base that are, the base is not in the shop yet because it's a new one, new to me. And the colorway, is really pretty. So that was my contender, second choice for the cardigan. But I decided to stick with the original plan and make the cardigan with the Lorna's laces. But just so you know about this yarn, this is my new base, which is called Breeze. It is a yarn that has a content of tencel, which makes it a little more drapey and maybe a little cooler also for our climate here. I don't know, I'll see how it wears. So colorway Monsoon, like it very much, my colors. I have 3 skeins set aside, so I need to figure out what I will make with those. And without further ado, here is the humble start of my Hitofude. The pattern, the stitch pattern, the lace pattern is super nice and easy to remember, and even if you make a mistake because you worked on it past your bedtime, you'll be able to figure it out and fix it. I had one mistake that I made late one evening, and I fixed it even without having to rip back to the original spot. So that is my Hitofude, the beginnings of it. There's one more thing that I wanted to show you, which is something that I have not even started, and it's actually what reminded me that I'm so much looking forward to this is that I went to the yarn store yesterday and I went to look at this base and look at that yarn and see what other colors there are, and which, yeah, I gotta start with this. So my plan is to make the Susu, and it's a pattern by Nora Gone. And I was lucky enough to attend a reception at my yarn store with Nora, and she was just super sweet, and I had decided ahead of time to make this sweater and brought the pattern to the yarn store, and then I think I even had picked 2 options for yarns, and I had a chance to talk to her about that, and she recommended to pick the yarn that I ended up buying, and she signed my pattern. So yay, I have to iron this. Look at this mess. I had it stuffed in in a project bag, and this was actually this and the yarn for the Hitofude, both yarns I took to Germany. So 3 skeins for the Hitofude and 9 skeins for this sweater I took to Germany, and I think the only thing I did was make a swatch, a gauge swatch for this one, and make the crochet cast on for the live stitches for the Hitofude. Oh my gosh, that's 12 skeins that I carried back and forth for nothing. Oh, bad. So, and here is my yarn, and I had never paid attention to this until recently. I think it really caught my eye for the color. It's called Kenzie, and it's a blend of 50, 25, 10, 10, 5. New Zealand merino, nylon, Angora, alpaca, and silk noils. So the Angora, you don't really see it, it doesn't have any kind of visible halo, just normal fuzz. But you can see the tiny bits of silk noils, and it's just very soft because of the Angora and the alpaca. It's a hand wash yarn, but that's totally fine with me. Here's my tiny micro gauge swatch. I am so in love with this color. I can't wait to have this finished. I think I am mainly a product knitter. What are you? Can you visit in the group, join the group, the Ziawoolz group on Ravelry? I would love to see you there, and tell me about your knitting. Are you a project knitter? Do you enjoy the process knitter? I think that's what you say. Or are you a product knitter? I think I'm a little bit of both, but I am, the older I get and the longer I have knit in my life, the more I plan ahead for a product that I want and that I want to use. I think when I was younger, I had a lot of stuff that I made that I ended up never wearing. So I think that has changed quite a bit. So I think that is it. There was only one more thing that I wanted to mention. Again, I do have a Ziawoolz group on Ravelry, and I would love for you to join the group. Stop by, say hello. If you have an extra minute, introduce yourself, and I will start a thread for this new episode. So let me know about your knitting. But also there's another thing. I'm always curious about how other people do certain things. How do you get organized? How do you find patterns and that kind of thing? And so I thought I'd take the time to talk about what I do, and then maybe you can share with the group how you do things. So I wanted to talk about how I find patterns and how things evolved and changed over the years, and probably also have changed as Ravelry has gotten so amazingly great of a platform for us to use. So I used to have, I still have them. I have a lot of knitting books, love them all, but don't use them nearly enough. Yeah, I should use them more, but I don't. Sad. I do have a very nice collection of magazines also, and I have two magazines that currently I regularly purchase. One of them is the German magazine Rebecca, and that is a magazine that mainly has, no, not even mainly. I think all of their designs are knitted with yarns of the brand is it GGH or GHH? I'm terrible. Sorry, I can't remember now. But that's what they exclusively knit with for the magazine. But I mean, it doesn't really matter. You can figure out how to substitute stuff. And that's not a problem for you and any knitter. So that's the Rebecca magazine, German magazine. I want to say they published it in English, but I don't know if it ever caught on because I haven't seen it in English in a long time. Maybe I get that mixed up with something else. Let me know if you know anything about that, because I like patterns in German. If I have a choice, I still pick German over English just because that's the language I grew up with. So the other magazine that my mom subscribes to for me is Strick Trends, which is translated knit trends, something like that. I don't think that is one that's available in English. And it's just nice because mom, she just stacks them up. She doesn't mail them or anything. So when I have come to Germany, I have two or three magazines waiting for me. And when she comes to see me, she brings some. And it's a nice magazine. I find stuff in that, and I have made stuff. Maybe another time I can show you something that I have made from that magazine that I still love very much. And yes, and about Ravelry, how I use it is I have a substantial amount of friends that I have added over the years, and it's people that I've come to know through Instagram or real life friends or people whose blogs I have followed, or even people where I stumbled upon their page and I thought, oh man, this person has a similar taste than me, and so I added them as a friend because then I can look up their friends and I can check the page that says friends activity, and I see what they have added to their queue, what they have liked, what they have made, what they have finished, what they're working on, which is very inspiring. And that's how I find a lot of the stuff that I put in my queue or that I plan to make or whatnot. Yes, and I sometimes, if I have the time, I go to the pattern page and look at the new patterns, just in the order they were from the latest on. I go backwards, but I probably do that at most once a month. Okay, I think I will close now. I hope I'm not forgetting anything, but I don't think so. Thank you again for stopping by, and if you would like to find me on Ravelry and Instagram, I am Paper Dag, so paper as paper and Dag as the short version of my name, Dagmar, so D-A-G. And I would love it if you join the group. Like I said, introduce yourself, say hello, share a little bit about yourself, and enjoy your knits until I see you again. Bye.